So this tip is about telling a story through data visualization with finance data. And this is definitely one of the most important parts. And by the time you've got to this stage of visualizing and thinking about how to present it, often you're so fed up with all the work you've had to do before to get these logic, these measures working with DAX and get your data in there that somehow this gets a little bit neglected. And that's a big mistake because this is a really, really important area. So the overall goal with data visualization is to reduce cognitive load. You want to make it as easy as possible for the people consuming your report to know exactly what it's telling them, what they need to do, and why, what's driving it. So is their performance good or bad? This is what you need to answer as soon as you look at the report. Is the performance good or bad? How good or bad? And why? What can I do about it? So that's really what we need to try and get to. So in terms of how you get that across with a design, for start, it needs to be really simple and uncluttered. So have as few visuals as you can on the page, and that will also help performance, which is part of user experience. So limit the number of visuals and make those visuals that you have simple and effective. So stick with bar charts, line charts, tables with conditional formatting, rather than just pure tables. So, but things that really help to people know how to interpret and how to understand. Lots of these snazzy new custom visuals, it increases cognitive load. People need to figure out how to interpret them, and that's what you want to try and avoid. So if we have a look at the report that we've got here, and this is just an example of a report that I built. It's not by any means the best report, and to copy exactly how it is. There's definitely things that could be improved on here. But one of the things you'll notice is that it's quite obvious what the key metrics are for what you're looking at. So we're looking at month to date, you're looking at monthly numbers, or you're looking at yearly numbers, and you can see, yep, revenue's up, gross profit's up, profit before tax is down, and profit after tax is down. So by quite a lot. So actually we're looking at probably our operating expenses we can see is going to be a major area that we need to focus on. And we can see, even looking at the waterfall chart where we're looking at profit after tax, we can see that European operations is the biggest contributor to that. So we can see at a glance where everything is, and we can also see, looking at our variances, for example, if we looked at measure comparison, we can see the variances and which ones have positive and negative variances. So we're using color here as well. And this is the idea, to use color to draw attention. So use it sparingly, don't overuse color, don't have rainbow charts, and use it to draw attention to the right thing. So use simple colors. So we've got here red and green for positive or favorable and unfavorable, and just use those to highlight favorable or unfavorable results. Something very simple color pattern like that. Everything else keep as neutral colors like grays and things like that. So let's have a look at, we start with, as I say, looking at what our numbers are showing, what our headline metrics are. And with the headline metrics, again, one of the things we really need to bring out with this to know as soon as someone's looking at this report is not just the number, because you can see here it says revenue was 1.54 million. And that begs the question, well, so what? Is that good or is that bad? How do I know what it was compared last year? I don't remember off the top of my head. Am I supposed to remember that and then associate that to tell me whether that number is good or bad? So we need to have context here, and this is where we've got these arrows. So up and down arrows. So up being the number's gone up, and down meaning it's gone down, and then red or green to say whether that increase or decrease is favorable or unfavorable. Now for all of these, an increase is always favorable because they're all credits. So revenue, gross profit, profit before tax, and profit after tax. If they've gone up, it's good. If they've gone down, it's bad. For the income statement, we had to apply some conditional formatting that was slightly more complicated because some of those, it could depend, right? So if it's cost of sales, or if it's a cost number, if that's gone down, that's good. So what we needed to do here was, on the conditional formatting, is look at the sign that's used. So we've got against a header or against the account lines, we've got the sign that's used, and then we make a call on whether a positive or negative increase is good or bad. But for these, so to do these arrows, these are just card visuals, so they're all just card visuals on here. And the arrow is from measure delta arrow. So we have the delta, and I've done these measures dynamically with a disconnected table, so it's a similar pattern to what we saw in the previous tips. We look at that delta, and if it's greater than 0, if it's positive, then we use the unicard character for an up arrow. Otherwise, we use the unicard character for a down arrow, and that's what we have there. And then we have the delta, and then the conditional formatting on this is if we just go to data label, and we can see it's just on that same delta, so it's either positive or negative number. If it's a positive number, then green. If it's a negative number, then red. So just very simple conditional formatting for that. So I said it gets slightly more complicated with the income statement, but you can go and check that out. So that now then gives us our 4 key heading metrics there, along with the context for whether that performance is good or bad. So we can see at a glance how well we're doing. The other kind of tip is to focus on variances, because the variances is what's telling a really interesting story here. It's not so much about what our numbers are and absolute numbers that might be interesting, but what's going to drive people coming back to this report over and over again and telling them something that they don't already know is really what are those real variances, or where are those variances coming from? If we know that we're up 100k or we're down 100k this month, why? What are the real drivers behind that? Is it particular regions? Is it particular products? Is it particular customers? Where are our metrics that would drive that number to go up or down? What do they look like? So that's why this variance is really important, because it's something that's going to draw attention and be interesting to your audience. So we have the variances brought out through the up and down arrows and through the colors, and also through use of a waterfall chart. Now, waterfall charts are great because they really show that movement in balances, and that's typically what they're used for, to show how did you go from here to here and what were the major contributors in the middle. And this is why finance folk love waterfall charts, because they tell a really interesting story just from a very simple visual that's easy to interpret. So I've adapted that same idea and used it for income statement, which obviously isn't balances, but we could still have a starting number or contextual number to start, and then a number that we're looking at either month to date, quarter to date, or year to date. So we can see here we've got month to date, and this is showing for net profit. We can see our month to date was 250k, so that's our current month, and then we've got prior month, and then the difference between those two, which ones have had the biggest positive difference and which ones have had the biggest negative difference. And we can see straight away where those regions are contributing to that increase or decrease in overall profit after tax. And then if we switch that for quarter to date, we can see that again, we've got our quarter to date number, so where we've ended up with 39,436. And then our starting number, we've done the first full month of the quarter. So this is May. That will be April's number. So if we did this for April, we'll just end up with the same number. First full month of quarter to date is the same. It's the same month for April, and we're only looking at monthly data here. Whereas for May, it's the first full month versus quarter to date. And then if we look at year to date, it's the first full month of the year, so January. So January's total profit compared to the year to date profit for up till May, and then for the difference between those two numbers, which are the biggest contributors towards that. And so this is quite interesting. And where it starts to now then give you, so it gives you very good information at a glance for profit after tax, which is your key headline. And where it gets really interesting is where we start to use cross filtering to tell that story. So we've already got the story of whether our performance is good or bad, and then we want to know why. Why is it good or bad? So actually what we can start to do then is hone in on things that look interesting to us. So for example, this European operations looks quite interesting because we can see our profit before tax is down and profit after tax is down overall. And then we can see straight away from here that European operations is the biggest contributor to that. In fact, it's the only contributor because the other 3 regions actually reported an increase in profit during that period. So if we now then a positive profit. So we can see heavy losses in here. So when we click on European operations, now this entire page shows just for European operations. So we have a European operation specific income statement where we can see exactly how that profit after tax number has been made up. So is it revenues? And we can compare those to prior year. Is it costs that have gone up? And again, we can compare those to prior years so we can see, and then we can drill down into those individual levels of detail focused on European operations. And here we can see at a high level, again, it's operating costs because our revenue and gross profit have both gone up compared to last year for European operations. But again, its profit before tax has gone down. So there's something really going on here with this. And we can see actually just looking at this, our prior year was 656k for European operations, our operating expenses, and this year is 1.774 million. So we can drill into that detail and see what's driving that. So that's one way of cross filtering. So again, you can hone in on a specific data point that's interesting. So think about your visuals that you have on a page and those cross interactions that you have, those visual interactions. Really try and get those right and think about those in advance and a storyboard and a user journey. And then we've got here the cross interaction going the other way as well. So we've got, we're focusing there on a particular region and we're looking at profit after tax, but actually if this is now looking interesting just from a revenue perspective and perhaps even for the regional generally, we can click on revenue, and now this waterfall chart's showing us our revenue number and how it was for the first full month. In January it was 772, and then our total year to date was 6.6 million. So then which regions have contributed most to that increase? And obviously you wouldn't expect to see the decreases here because that represents 11 months of data and that represents 1 month. But in those 11 months, where's been the biggest increases? So this is, using these cross interactions, these visual interactions really allow the user to be able to dig into that why story. And then make sure everything's simple and make sure everything's easy to use and obvious. And the last thing on here is think about the user journey from the perspective of navigation or what they want to see. So people might want to see slightly different variations on things depending on their purpose. And actually, the income statement is a perfect example of this, because if we have different income statements we might want to see. So actually we said, well, you might want to see it as a fixed format with all of those subtotals that we looked at in the last tip, where it's got gross margin and net sales. And we can see we don't have the drill down capability, but we can see there's like a properly formatted income statement. We might want to just look at the individual lines and drill into all of those details to say revenue, discounts, gross sales. We want to be able to drill it. This is the in and out drill through hierarchy, and actually we want to see all the measures relating to those. Or we might want to see a grid style where we've got, say, region across the top and your FS lines down the side. Now again, the only thing that's changing with these visuals is just that one table. Everything else is staying the same. So any other filter selections I've got, any other cross filtering selections I've made apart from this income statement will apply, and I can see the income statement in those 3 views. So that was set up using bookmarks. So if we go to bookmarks, you'll see that each 3 of these are linked to a specific bookmark. So the first one to IS formatted, the second one to IS measure comparison, and the third one to IS country table. And clicking on these bookmarks then shows the effect of those buttons. Now, what we've done to create those bookmarks is change the visibility of particular matrices. So created 3 copies of that matrix, 3 visuals, brought them all onto the same page, and then when adding the bookmark, just set the toggle for each one's visibility. So this one has each one will have 2 income statements hidden and 1 visible. So this one's got these 2 hidden, and it's got the measure comparison one visible, and then the opposite one, it's got the country one visible here, and then the other 2 income statements hidden. Capture those as bookmarks, and then link the bookmarks to the buttons. So hopefully that gives you a bit of an idea how to be able to tell a story with this. And it's really important to think about the questions that you want to answer with this upfront. Write those questions down, validate those questions with your audience, and only try to aim your report at a very specific audience. Don't try and be all things to all people. Build that report based on that storyboard. Think about those visual interactions. Think about that journey. Think about that journey of starting with, is my performance good or bad? How good or bad is it? Why? And then what can I do about it? With that in mind, you can't go too far wrong with data visualization.